Hello everyone, and welcome to today's PV Tech Talk webinar with Solis. I'm Andy Colthorpe, editor of Energy Storage News and PV Tech. We've been covering the global PV and energy storage industries for a business audience for well over a decade. In this session, we'll be talking about hybrid inverters, what they are, why you might need them, and what sort of key features and innovations you should be looking out for. The solar industry is transforming rapidly. We were already seeing huge growth in installations in many parts of the world, and at the same time, many of the more mature markets are transitioning away from feed-in tariffs or net metering for residential or commercial and industrial solar. While this was already happening, we've since seen geopolitics and rising demand for electricity drive power prices up to crisis levels in places like the UK, Australia, and the European Union. Elsewhere, taking the US, parts of Asia, and again Australia as examples, the threat of extreme weather is motivating households and businesses to take control of as much of their energy supply as they can. In other words, the solar PV market has entered a completely new era. Faced with the risk of blackouts from extreme weather or simply a lack of energy available to the grid, and faced with rising electricity prices, battery storage and smart solar self-consumption are the present reality and future of the solar market. And earlier, we mentioned a few different regional markets around the world, but for today's session, it's interesting to note that we have 487 registrants from 98 different countries. So it's clear there's interest in this topic in many parts of the world. Bloomberg NEF recently predicted that by 2030, a quarter of all global battery storage installations will be in the residential and commercial and industrial segments of the market every year. Hybrid inverters are the vital gateway to that future, and in today's webinar, we'll be learning more about how they work and how to use them. We'll also be hearing about Solis's new S6 sixth generation hybrid inverter and some of the benefits it brings. Today's speakers are Travis Snyder, who is product manager for Europe with Solis. Hi, Travis.
Hi, how's it going? Thank you for having us.
Yeah, good, thanks. No, you're welcome. Thank you for being here. And Carmen Dimitrescu, who's also with Solis and is in pre-sales support in the European region.
Hello,
Hi,
everyone.
Carmen.
Hi. Really nice being here. Thanks.
Awesome. And as always, interaction with you, the audience, is really important to us. After today's presentation, we will host a Q&A session. So please input your questions into the tab on the right-hand side of your screen that you can see there. And just to note that we are recording today's webinar, and the video as well as slides will be sent out to all registrants. And also to note that we may not be able to deal with every question that comes in on the Q&A. We'll try and deal with as many as we can, but I'm pretty sure Solis will be happy to continue any more sort of detailed conversations offline after the session. So with all that out of the way and without further ado from myself, I'd like to hand over to our speakers. Over to you, Travis and Carmen.
Thank you, Andy. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, PV Tech. We love the work you do. Today is an exciting day for us at Solis. We are extremely excited to show you the new three-phase hybrid. But I'm going to back up a little bit and give you a little context and a little bit more historical information. So first, I want to just bring everybody up to speed. A hybrid inverter, very simply, is an inverter with a PV connection and a battery connection. And for ours specifically, we have an external meter. You can see there on the top right, and we have an internal transfer switch for your backup loads. And so next, Carmen, she will explain our current lineup, what we have now.
Thanks, Travis. So up to now, Solis has already brought to the market a wide selection of hybrid inverters, addressing at first mainly to the residential customers. We have started with the single-phase low-voltage hybrid inverters. These have been ranging between 3 up to 6 kilowatt and are compatible with the low-voltage batteries. Moving afterwards up to the 5G three-phase high-voltage hybrid inverters. These are ranging between 3 up to 10 kilowatt and are compatible with high voltage batteries for the residential and for the small commercial markets. And last but not least, our 3 kilowatt AC coupled single phase inverter. Mainly this is used in retrofitting projects that can connect to a low voltage batteries and charge it with the excess of the PV energy generated by another PV inverter on site.
That's right.
So guys, does the AC charger on that, does that need to be compatible with a lot of different types of equipments? And which PV inverters work with the AC charger then?
I'll take that one, Carmen. The AC charger you see there, it doesn't really matter what inverter. You could use an SMA, a Fronius, anything that you have already installed. The meter that it comes with, it just detects a positive power being discharged to the grid. It just takes that power and then it dumps it back into the battery. And then when you need it later, when your PV production is low or the sun is down, then it'll discharge the battery. And that's kind of how it works. Carmen, do you want to introduce our new inverter?
Yes, absolutely, Travis. So today we're pleased to introduce to you our new S6 3-phase hybrid inverter. Well, this is our most advanced inverter to date. We'll get into the advancements one by one and show you why it's important for your business and the world we live in. Travis, maybe you can explain a bit more. Yes.
So I think it's really important to recognize why this product is important in this point of history. You may notice or be completely shocked at the price of electricity right now, and I guess that's why our business is so good. But to note, it has increased globally, so customers are really now desiring to secure their energy future, and that's where these type of products come in. And also, electric vehicles are becoming a standard in households, and not only just one, but maybe even two. So just the overall desire here is increasing among everybody. And for me, it's just the desire to go green. But so let's get into some features for this new inverter. First off, we have increased to 4 MPPTs, which is huge for a lot of installers. That means that you can, it's huge. So our current one on the RHI 3 to 10K is 2 MPPTs, and then for this one, it's 4 MPPTs.
Okay, so Travis, I think it's a good point to pause a little bit and kind of roll back on the MPPT and why it is that you guys have 4. I mean, I think I read somewhere that Solis is the first to market or unique in the industry to have 4 maximum power point trackers. Right. So why is that approach, and do you expect that that's something that other people will copy? And just how important are MPPTs in today's market?
Yeah, we are currently the only manufacturer that has it in this range. And I think it's important because if you have 2 MPPTs and say 2 strings per MPPT, you're in this like small box where you can only put the strings on 2 facets of the roof, right? So when you have 4 MPPTs, you can put them anywhere anywhere you want them to be, and they will not affect the other string. And also your yield will increase by that feature. And so it just makes it easier for the installer. It's just much more flexible. They don't even have to think about where they put the strings. Obviously, you want to put them in the sun, but you don't have to add any additional components. So I definitely think all manufacturers will follow this. So next, I want to talk about the increase in current on the MPPTs, and I know it's really important. So this allows the usage of high power panels, and more specifically the 210 millimeter panels with increased IMP. And I showed this slide because on the old panels back 2 or 3 years ago, the MPP current, the max power point current is at around 8 to 10, right? And now what you're seeing here is we're seeing 12, 13, 14, or even higher than that. So we made this one 16 amps, so you still have more room for the future. And it's really important to know this when you're procuring an inverter, because if your input current can't handle the current of the panel, it will either clip at an extremely low current, or it could actually damage the inverter if it's too far above it. So Carmen, let's talk about another important feature, and that's the compatibility with the batteries.
Yes, excellent. Well, considering the current shortages on the battery market, I think Solis has positioned itself quite well, and we are very, very happy and proud that Solis installers and end users are not stuck with just one single brand of battery. This is because we have gone out of our way to be compatible with as many batteries as possible. And if you look at the next slide, at our battery compatibility list, you will see that it's quite extensive.
Right, exactly.
So just wondering, sort of from a manufacturer's perspective then, like, there's quite an impressive list of different compatible devices, really, I guess, the names that I think most people will have heard of. But how difficult is it to create a hybrid inverter that's capable of being compatible with all those? And then for each new one, do you have to work closely with the battery manufacturers to achieve that compatibility?
Well, yeah, indeed, I can tell you it's not easy in the sense that there are so many battery manufacturers out there on the market, and we need to make sure that we're working with top quality ones. Our R&D battery team put a lot of energy and effort into testing all of these inverters that you see here and whitelisting them. This involves a lot of teamwork and cooperation with the battery manufacturers as well. And also, as you know, the battery models change all the time. And always we need to go back and verify if they're still compatible. And on top of that, we're constantly expanding this compatibility list. So sometimes it's even every month. Every time a new battery is added, we need to change the inverter firmware and in order to keep it up to speed.
Right.
So yeah, it is a lot of work. Yeah.
Exactly. And also many people, they get confused here with high voltage and low voltage, and I kind of want to clear that up. So when you have a high voltage battery, you're not putting them in parallel, they stack. So the voltage will increase. So you're at 100, you go to 100 to 200 to 300. And I just want to make sure everybody knows that. And always check your manufacturing data sheet to see what the largest stack is. And then you also have to check the inverter, the battery input. For us, it's 600 volts. Some might think it's a 1,000-volt inverter, but no, the input is actually 600 volts. So you can stack up to 600 volts on the battery input. So, so that being said, I want to introduce you our next feature, which is paralleling the inverter. And why is that important to this battery topic? So when you add another inverter, you can add another stack. So for example, if you have a battery company A and their smallest stack is say 3.84 kilowatt hours, they can stack up to 23 kilowatt hours. So you can max it at 23 kilowatt hours for that one inverter. But you can add another inverter in parallel and put another stack in another one. So if you have 3, right, you can put up to 69 kilowatt hours, and that's massive for expanding your commercial storage system or even your large residential system. So Carmen, let's go to the next topic.
Sure, Travis. Well, this is very important because in today's times, installers want easy installation steps, and end customers want and demand permanent connectivity with their devices. Well, now having this with our new S6 hybrid inverter, there are 2 ways to connect, and each has their own purpose. So first of all, we have the Bluetooth connection that can be used for setting up the inverter on the initial installation. So that gives the installer easy access to the setup of the inverter without the need to set up an account or connect the inverter to the internet if there is no internet access. Also, since the Bluetooth has a distant range, the homeowner can also use this to change their settings on their phone and also see a display of the inverter in real time. So on this slide here, you can see a view from SolisCloud app. The home page is showing the energy flow diagram with the inverter data, consumption data, and the battery page, you can see detailed battery information. So it really gives an overview of the installation. But the second option to access the inverter through the internet, that is again through SolisCloud, and it can be via Wi-Fi or cellular connection. or LAN connection. From here, you can see the detailed information on the system, but being anywhere else in the world you need to be. So we have some also related to this. We have some exciting news. Travis, do you want to share the good news?
Exactly. And we've been asked this 1,000 times. So from all sources, from calls, from Facebook, from YouTube, please can you guys do this? So from now on, all new hybrid inverters will come with communication dongle and it's going to be in the box. It'll be a Wi-Fi dongle. The dongle is the latest generation, and it has that reset button on the outside that used to be inside, and then it has the 3 LEDs to give the installer a really nice understanding of what the dongle is doing. And of course, it's like I said, it's going to be in the box. That will include the meter and the CTs in the box. So it's really a good thing.
I think it's worth maybe just taking a pause and a step back for a second here, because you mentioned the importance of having the meter included. And yeah, do you want to just maybe explain briefly why the meter is so important to the functionality of the system?
Sure.
Yes, indeed. Well, the meter is an essential component for this installation, because this is the one that measures all the energy that is coming in and out of the property. And based on that critical information, the inverter decides if it has to charge or discharge the battery in order to cover the house consumption. So on this connection diagram, you can see the loads on the bottom with the refrigerator, washer, dryer, the TV. Well, the meter is placed after your load, so it's measuring and it's seeing everything. When your loads are on, they're taking energy from the grid. Well, the inverter detects that and the grid consumption, and it's going to start discharge the battery. And additionally, as you can see here, we also have the backup port where you can have your critical loads, which you can power supply in case of a grid outage. Travis,
Right.
Can you maybe tell us a bit more about the new advancements on the backup port?
Sure. Yeah. So the backup port, it's been updated. So it has an extremely fast switching time. So previously we were at 40 milliseconds, and now we've got it down to 10 milliseconds. So you absolutely cannot tell when you've lost the grid on the backup port. Absolutely. It's a huge update for us.
And I mean, I think it's something in general that, we mentioned it earlier, that I think people are looking more and more to battery storage systems, typically paired with solar, as a potential backup source, and obviously securing critical loads is a key part of that. But, there's going to be a broad range of customers and homeowners and I guess businesses as well, you could include in that, where you'll have some people that want to be really interactive with their kit and understand exactly what it does. And other people will just want to have it fitted and essentially, forget about it until it seamlessly kicks in when it needs to, I guess. But, how much is there about configuring and deciding critical loads that, the installer should take care of? How much should the end user be aware of? And just as a whole piece, how do you sort of get across what's important in terms of the critical load and how to set that up, really, I guess?
Right. This is a tricky topic. It's a very important topic, I think. So I think I want the installers to know it's important to understand the work that you have to do when you put in that backup circuit, right? You have to, as you can see on that slide there, you've got to put in a whole new circuit with the RCD. So some installers or customers will prefer not to do that, and they'll just want like a socket underneath so they can plug in anything that they want when the grid goes off. But some want the full shebang, as they say. And as far as the end users, what they need to understand is kind of what loads that they can put on the backup port. You have to be reasonable. You can't just go and put your kettle on or your welder or your hot tub. It doesn't work like that. That's too large of loads, right? So you want critical loads, like things that you need to live. You don't want your freezer to go dead. You don't want and lose all your food or your refrigerator, or maybe you want some lights, or you can even keep your internet connection. So those type of things. And some people will want their TV. So those type of things that you want to keep. And in markets, there are a lot of markets where you lose power on a high frequency, and you would absolutely want to use this option. So markets like South Africa, some parts of Ireland, just all over the globe, there's lots of markets with unstable grids that will constantly, and also if we're talking about rolling blackouts, the UK might see some rolling blackouts here shortly. And I think what also you need to know is that we have a feature alongside it, and that's called a battery reserve feature. So when you activate it, that battery, you could set the percentage. So default would be 80%, and then it'll keep that battery at 80% no matter what. So when you do lose the power, it will have at least 80% battery, or whatever you set it to. You can set it to 90 or 95, and then you'll have a 95% battery fully charged, ready for when your grid goes out. And that's, it's important to have that feature along with the backup port. So
yes, and also more to this point, we have also added another option which allows communication with the generator. So when you are in an off-grid scenario and you have been running on your batteries and the state of charge drops to critical load, the inverter can initialize the generator and can supply power to your loads, and also even charge the battery to full.
Yep. And we should also talk about unbalanced load, because this is a hot topic right now. So with our new inverter, we added this feature basically. So for example, on this slide, with like older technology, older inverters, they will do like an average across the phases. So when you have a load, like on the bottom here where it says a 2.4 kilowatt load, the inverter will put out 2.4, but it won't put it at that specific phase, right? It'll put it out among the 3 phases. And so you're still pulling 1.6 kilowatt from the grid. So it makes you buy more power if you're only using like a single phase load on a 3-phase, inverter. So, or system. So what we did was we added the feature of unbalanced load. So what it does now is it detects what phase, and then it puts 2.4 down that phase, and then injects 0 to the grid. So you can keep it zeros across the board. And then you can easily activate this feature in the app, in the Bluetooth, and you just go to 3-phase on-grid unbalanced switch. You turn it on, you can set your limits, and boom, it works. I tested it myself. And so now I want to recap a little bit. So the inverter, first of all, we've increased it from 2 to 4 MPPTs. The MPPTs are now 16 amps, very important for you with the 210 millimeter panels. The display has moved from the inverter to the phone, and you can control it in the house with Bluetooth and also through SolisCloud app. The charging current I didn't talk about, but it's doubled from 25 amps to 50 amps. So even at low voltage of the battery, you could still get 10 kilowatts out of it. DC-AC ratio has increased to 160%. So you can put more panels on the roof. You can put 16 kilowatts on a 10 kilowatt system. And we've reduced the switching time, like I talked about, from 40 to 10 milliseconds. We added the parallel option, which is one of the biggest things that we added. And then we added the unbalanced load, and then we added the generator communication support. So I just want to say thank you to PV Tech and our beloved clients around the world. Thank you for joining us here. Go ahead, Andy.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Travis, and thank you, Carmen. Yes, a lot to think about in there, I think. And as it says on the screen, thank you very much for listening to all our attendees, and in lots of different parts of the world. And speaking of which, we're going to flip over to a few audience questions. Got time for just a few audience questions.
Okay.
And talking about different parts of the world, we had quite a few questions on availability, actually. So I don't know if you guys have got the list in front of you, or if that's something you can follow up offline, but we'd certainly had some customers, or potential customers, I should say, probably attendees of the webinar, asking, which markets it's available, the the new product is available at the moment. Do you want to just give us a quick rundown of that?
So I'm in charge of Europe and South Africa. So they will be commercially available across all of those countries. By the end of this month, they'll be certified in all of Europe. And there might be some trickle, so maybe December 15th-ish. But right now, they're about 60% certified across Europe. As far as availability, they are producing them right. We are producing them right now. But I don't know on what scale. So I would estimate probably January you can get them on full scale, full consumption, general consumption is what we call it.
Okay, great. I mean, we had 2 people asking when the product will be available in Pakistan.
Mm-hmm.
Is that one?
Yeah, if you go to the website, there's a contact for Pakistan, and then the person in charge of that region will let you know.
Cool. Okay, great. So, it's a worldwide energy transition, isn't it? So
Definitely.
as many countries as possible to be involved. We did have quite a few questions actually on the availability of islanding mode. So I don't know which one to pick because there were quite a few. Someone asked if the product can fully function on or off grid. And someone else, a bit more specifically, asked if in the event of a power outage, will the inverter carry on charging the battery and critical loads whilst in island mode? So, yeah, what sort of islanding mode does it have? And yeah, do you want to just talk through how those might work?
Do you want to take Carmen, or I can do it?
Sure. Well, our inverter has an actual off-grid mode, which this enables the inverter to work in completely off-grid scenarios, but this is not mandatory to be enabled because the inverter will automatically have its backup port available for at any times. When there is a grid outage, the inverter will disconnect from the main AC connection to the grid, and it's going to just supply power to the critical loads which are connected to the main to the backup port. And these critical loads will be supplied from the PV battery or from the PV, depending on the availability.
Mm-hmm. There was another question there, though.
So, sorry. So, yeah, in the event of an outage, will the inverter carry on charging the battery and critical loads?
Yes,
whilst
it definitely will.
Yeah.
It'll continue charging from the PV.
Yes.
Okay, cool. And getting into specifics a little bit, but one audience member was asking, what can the max load be in one phase for 3-phase UPS loads?
Well, we can consider that as being, depending on the size of the inverter, we can consider that for now as being a third of the maximum output capacity for each phase.
Okay. And we talked quite a lot about, I guess, with reference to the residential market, but obviously these products are targeted at commercial and industrial. And we did have one question from the audience asking basically about sort of peak shaving applications using batteries. And yeah, I mean, I'm not sure, the question was just, can you cover the topic on peak shaving? But do you want to just maybe talk very briefly about how the needs for a commercial and industrial customer might be different, or the needs versus applications for a commercial and industrial customer might be different?
Yeah, the peak shaving is not in this product, but it is a firmware that will be upgraded in the future. They are working on it, the R&D team. It's important for places like Belgium, and I think I see the person that's asking it, Joachim Wahlberg. I think I know that person from Norway. So I'm not sure if it's needed in Norway, but I know for sure because of legislation it's needed in Belgium. So we are developing it right now. I think it'll probably be in February, and we can just update the inverters to have it within the system.
Okay.
Basically, what it means is, so I guess I can explain it further for the audience. So when you have like in Belgium, I think what's happening is they'll charge you based off of the max that you go to. So say you are pulling 5 kilowatts, right? So if you're pulling 5 kilowatts, they'll charge you on that 5 kilowatts, even if it was just briefly. So what peak shaving does is you say, don't ever go above 2 kilowatts. And then the inverter will just only discharge when you're above 2 kilowatts. So it keeps it down. So that will essentially save you money in those markets. That's what peak shaving is.
Travis, that was an absolutely excellent answer, and top marks for that. But I just want to point out that Joaquim has pointed out that he's in fact from Sweden, so he's a bit sad.
Sweden. I don't know. Scandinavian though.
All right. Let's just do. Should we just do a couple more quick questions then,
Sure,
and then we'll probably unfortunately have to call it time. But I have to say that as moderator, it's quite difficult to juggle when we have so many questions coming
There's a lot.
in. So I'm doing my best here, but obviously we could only have answered even a fraction of these questions. So Solis will be reaching out to all of you that ask questions. We'll be able to continue that conversation offline.
Okay.
So there's one audience member asked a little bit of a specific question, but maybe this will illustrate the capabilities, I guess. So Oliver Miller asks, in situations where you want to install more than 16 kilowatts of PV, will the battery charge off additional PV connected in AC?
I think the question is more related to if the inverter is installed on the same site with additional PV string inverters, and indeed, I think this is what the question is related to. And yes, the inverter will be capable of charging the batteries also with the additional energy which is being generated by other installations on site. So just like it would, our AC coupled does the same. The S6 hybrid will be able to charge the batteries with that excess from any other PV installation that is on site, and it's injecting power into the grid. So no matter the only thing that is extremely important here is the location where we have that meter connections, those meter CT clamps that we've discussed. It's very important that those are connected to the main AC incoming power supply so they can read all that energy that is being either exported or imported.
Yep. Exactly.
Okay. And talking of import and export, you mentioned that the hybrid inverter can be coupled with generators, obviously, as well as batteries. But so there's a question from the audience asking for if there's some generator manufacturers that work and communicate with the inverter. So I guess in terms of, just wondering from my point of view, whether there's that whole same compatibility question as you have with batteries, or if maybe it's a little bit more of a generic plug and play type of solution with generators?
No, there's no need necessarily for compatibility. Indeed, the generators do have some specific parameters on which they work on. And when we are setting up an inverter, when we are installing it in a scenario like this, we have a lot of installations already anyway installed in South Africa. We do have to set some of those parameters in the inverter settings so that they can work together without any problems. But yeah, so there's no need for some specific brands.
And also that we added the dry contact, so it'll just turn it on when it needs it on. But there's also another feature like Carmen's talking about that's called frequency derate. So when the frequency of the generator will decrease, like say 57 hertz or 47, then the inverter will decrease its output, and that will protect the generator because the inverter can potentially damage the generator
if it injects too much power in raising the frequency of the installation of the grid.
Okay. And I think, if I could just ask maybe just a couple of more general questions before we finish up, like, with any kind of power electronics, there's a lot of work that needs to go into it before it's, firstly deemed safe, obviously, and then secondly, up to the standard that's required. So what kind of testing goes into these sort of inverters before they even make it to market then?
Right. I can answer that. So the lab does test obviously everything before it gets ready. Then it goes in like chamber testing. It does lightning strike protection testing. It goes damp, was it damp freeze? I think it's called damp heat, and then testing. And then they do like a IP testing when they test how much water they can blow into it. And then what we do at that point is we do a run on our plant, and then we send it to local engineers in the market, right? And so for us in Europe, we have a guy named Paul in Liverpool, and he's like one of the brightest guys in solar, probably top 100 smartest guys you'll ever meet. And we send it to him, and then he goes through the whole system from top to bottom, you know, and then gives feedback to the R&D. R&D makes the changes, and then what we do at that point is we send it for like a sample to all of our top customers. They go through it, maybe debug it a little bit, then send our feedback. We get the fix, and then we send it out for small consumption and then general consumption.
Right. Well, okay. So, you know, seeing this product get launched now is, I guess, the culmination of a lot of hard work and, you know, I guess some nerves and everything. And yeah, really great to see that all coming together really now, I guess. Cool. Okay. Like, I'm just trying to go through these questions, but I think it would be completely unfair to just maybe, you know, just answer just even more a fraction. But one final one is that someone's asking what the warranty time is on the inverters. I guess that would probably be a useful one to know. Whether it's, I think this customer's in the EU, but yeah.
But for EU, it would be, it's different around the world, but for EU, it's 5, and you can expand it up to 20. And then for other locations, I think the US standard 10 years, but most around the world is 5 years.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, I think you guys are going to have a lot of fun sifting through these other questions as they go through. Okay. Some of them very quite a lot more specific, I guess, than, you know, the whole audience would have got benefit from. But I'm sure the person asking them, you know, will get a lot of benefit from interacting with you guys on that. So yeah, I just want to thank our panelists, Travis and Carmen, for being with us today to explain through the hybrid inverter. And I want to thank you, the audience, more than anyone, for joining us today. And, you know, if you're watching this, you're probably kind of one of those people that's mission driven to be working in the clean energy industry like a lot of us. And just want to say thank you so much for all you do. Keep up the good work. And, you know, let's keep pushing on, really, I guess.
Absolutely.
Thanks very much, guys. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much, Andy.